Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. It's an honor to bring in a celebrity and an entertainer and an absolute genius, Wavy Gravy. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Good morning, world! And space. You've got gravy in your ear. Wavy Gravy, hippie icon, flower geezer, former frozen dessert, temple of accumulated air, and a lot of other stuff. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I wanted to talk to you, if you could talk to the audience about the kinds of walks you took with Albert Einstein and who that cat was.
Okay, here we go. It was, at the beginning of 1940 around, I was 5 or 6 years old. I don't remember much except a shock of white hair that predated Don King by half a century. Sweatshirt, sneakers, no logos. And the thing I remember most, as you remember in youth, smells, odors. This guy smelled peculiar. And I would remember that for the rest of my life. In fact, someday I'll walk up to somebody and I'll say, "Hey, man, you smell like Albert Einstein."
Well, what did he smell like?
He smelled like Albert Einstein. What do pork chops smell like?
But, I mean, the fact that you walked around the block with this, what does that mean? I mean, that's all it says, is that you took walks around the block with him.
Are you kidding? Einstein freaks have had me hypnotized. Did he bounce any theories off me? I was 5. What do you remember when you're 5?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, man. You were 5 years old, and I'm just trying to figure out.
We lived in Princeton. Another amazing event, in the dead of night, my parents took me out of my crib and put me in the car and headed for the hills because the Martians were landing. It turned out it was Orson Welles doing his radio show, and everybody thought it was real.
Talking to Wavy Gravy here, the guy is on fire right now. So you really, I mean, I'm not saying that I could care less about his discoveries. I'm just wondering if Einstein, if those cats were eating LSD at that point.
No, it was much later when Albert Hoffman fell off his bicycle after ingesting psychotropic rye bread.
Psychotropic rye bread, Hoffman's bicycle. He fell off the bike. But
was it a Schwinn? It was a win, that's for sure.
I mean, I'm in over my head today on the Jake Feinberg Show. We both, by the way, we're both Boston University Terrier alma. I went to
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I got a broadcast.
Do you realize I started jazz and poetry in Boston?
Well, this is what I want to talk. Yeah, no, I mean this to me is absolutely intoxicating stuff. You wind up going there. Well, first of all, Wavy, I want you to talk. This is so exciting for me because so many of the cats that you knew that came out of the psychedelic rock movement were inspired by you and other beat poets and writers and characters like that. And I just wanted you to talk as a peer of those beat poets who you got friendly with when in the late 50s, let's say, even before Boston University.
No, not before Boston University. I read about, I think, Allen Ginsberg reading the Howl in Time magazine. And I said, "Hey, I've written some poems and I know some musicians. Let's do it." This place on Huntington Avenue, there's a bar called The Rock. In the basement is a pizza place called The Pebble in the Rock. And that's where we held forth. And I got the kids from the museum school to decorate the place with mobiles and black tablecloths and stuff. And we were wailing. It was so cool. And then also going to BU, I studied dance with Martha Graham. She had feet like cypress trees. I so badly wanted to pork Martha Graham. I had the hots for her.
Of course you did. No, I mean, okay, let's go. Ginzy, you read Howl, and
he read Howl in the West Coast.
Sure, but
I was on the East Coast. I read about it in Time magazine.
So you read about it in Time, and you said, I've written some poetry. I know some musicians. Let's do it. What did you mean by do it? You mean put it in real time?
Jazz and poetry.
So this is my question. How responsible were cats like Ginzy for helping bebop grow as a language of jazz in your mind?
Well, I think bebop was already there. I think that they got it from, like, Charlie Parker. And I later, much later, got to open for Thelonious Monk at the Renaissance in Los Angeles. That's when I was doing stand-up after I left the Committee, which was one of the best improvisational theaters in the world. And, there was a whole lot of time and space from the East Coast to the West Coast to everywhere. Whee!
Well, no. I don't want to jump around too quickly. I mean, you're doing
it.
Because I've focused a lot of my show on Afro jazz cats, and I've heard a lot about the fact that a lot of the beat writers would go in and talk about the form of jazz known as bebop, and you're talking about fusing your poetry with jazz music, and I want you
absolutely.
Please talk about the kind of jazz that you were fusing it with. Was it post bop? Was it? I mean, what was the music? Who were you playing with at the Pebble Pizza place?
Oh, that was a guy named Al Francis who played vibes. Stan Silverman, a great guitar player.
Wow.
Geez, I don't remember the drummer.
You had vibes.
But once I got to New York, I established a gig, believe it or not, in Hartford, Connecticut, doing jazz and poetry, and it was a hit. It was huge.
Oh, I bet.
Every Monday.
This is badass.
Years.
This is badass.
For years, people would line up around the block to look at beatniks.
What was the name of the club? Okay, so what was the name of the club?
That was Golden Lion in Hartford, and I brought in people like Don Ellis, like Jackie Byard,
wow,
like Buell Eilinger, who played with Jimmy.
You were bringing in Jackie Byard, dude. And most people don't even know he was a better drummer than a piano player. That dude was a badass. But you were bringing in black jazz musicians. Can you, for the audience right now,
black and white.
Black and white, baby. Can you riff on some poetry that you would do while the guys were playing in the background? Jazz,
a lineage descended from drum refrains beyond the flight of wild birds, a gift of joy that greets these walls in 4/4 time.
I mean, dude, this is fantastic. What was it? So Silverman, this other cat Francis, you had vibes, guitar, and do you have drums or in the?
Maybe it was a long time ago, man. My chromosomes have amnesia.
Yeah, but you're still doing pretty good. No, I was going to say, because this intermeshing of improvisational music with poetry, to me, it was. Would you say that it was completely progressive for the time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We jumped right on it, and we got paid. That's how I got these guys. Every Monday was a payday, and we would leave New York City and go to Hartford, Connecticut, and do it.
Was Don Ellis? Don Ellis was not playing in 4/4 though.
No.
I mean, he was playing 13/7.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know. I'm just a hippie poet in an altered space, usually, back then.
Space
is the place, said Sun Ra.
Space is the. I mean, yeah. Why don't you talk about some of those guys? Who were some of the cats? Like, did you get to know Jack?
I was trying to. The one I can talk about most is Thelonious Monk.
Go ahead.
Do you know his middle name?
No.
Sphere. Like a round ball. A sphere.
Sphere. Unbelievable.
Thelonious Monk. Thelonious Sphere Monk.
Sphere.
And he was magnificent. And I closed the Renaissance with Thelonious Monk. The Renaissance, the cool jazz place that hosted everybody from Miles to Lord Buckley, run by Benny Shapiro.
I love this.
Who lived on Horn Street.
Was it? Yeah.
I'll tell you a story. There were these stairs going down to the dressing room from you'd come off Sunset Boulevard and you opened this door and there were these steep stairs that went down into the dressing rooms, and I got there early with chalk and I wrote things like go back 3 steps, spin around 2 times, go forward 10 steps, and so forth. And then I hit and waited for Monk to show up. And he comes in and he looks at it, and sure enough, he spins around. He goes back 6, forward 2. Oh my God! It took him 15 minutes to get down the stairs. It was hilarious. And at that moment, I give him this big fat joint that I had saved for him because it was like you floated. You did not feel your feet in contact with the earth with this weed.
Right.
We ducked in the closet, put a towel on the floor to cover the crack, something I learned from musicians, to not let the weed smoke drift out into the general environment.
Right.
Lit up the joint for Monk, and he took it in one toke.
He blew down the whole joint with one hit? That's unbelievable.
Oh, it was just this big glowing thing that got bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, we were in the dark. But he lit up the place with the pot. Then he went upstairs to play, and he started out, and he hit the wood on both sides with his knuckles. Then he made a little adjustment and played flawlessly for the rest of the night.
Did you have, I mean, a lot, I'm just curious, Wavy, about...
Isn't that amazing?
Well, I've talked to a lot of cats who played with Monk from a jazz point of view, and you know, I mean, you're talking about younger cats who, you know, they'd have a 2-week engagement with him, maybe in San Francisco, and the first week he would not say more than 5 words the entire week to the drummer. He would use a lot of hand signals, a lot of nonverbal communication, yet he had this great stage presence, and I would love to know if any of those jazz guys influenced your entertainment persona when you were early in your career.
Monk and Train mostly, and certainly Don Ellis and Jackie Byard. I mean, you know, we got into, because, well, first of all, when I put the jazz and poetry group together, I was not smoking pot or anything. And I found out they were smoking pot, and I lectured them. I said, don't you guys know you're ruining your lives? They're like, yeah, man.
Yeah. Right. So what?
And then we took off for my friend John Adams and I, my co-poet. We hitchhiked up to Kennebunkport, Maine, and opened a coffee house, cafe on the square. And one night I decided to do it, and I smoked some great pot and proceeded to cover an automobile with shaving cream and started pounding on the hood, maintaining I was sending telegraph messages around the world.
I mean,
and I've been doing it ever since.
I mean, because do you this one of we.
That's a naughty thing I just did.
No, you didn't. I don't care. This is free.
The first letter was F.
But I guess my other, you talk about Train, Jackie, Don Ellis, Thelonious. You're talking about pioneers of creating new language. But as far as what's that? Coltrane. I want you to talk to. I'm 38 years old. I have 2 younger daughters. I'm
80 in a moment or two.
Yeah, God bless you. By the way, happy birthday, man. But I
didn't think I'd make 40.
Can you talk about what inspired you most? Forget that I know you're not a musician, or I'm sorry, you're not a technician on any of the instruments. But can you talk?
I only play the ektar. Ek in Hindu is one, tar is string. Many strings, never in tune. One string. Sometimes I get lucky.
What inspired you about those guys as stage entertainers that influenced your entertainment persona?
I guess it was osmosis.
Nice way to duck.
Because I was and am a really good reader of anything, and I can become the words.
Can you give an example to the audience as you turn 80 in 2 minutes of that?
Once upon a time, when time had just begun, everything was real and make-believe. So make-believe a child's name was Only Love. Only love was only love upon the universe where Buddha smiled in bell smoke. That's just the beginning of a long poem.
Wow. Beat generation, jazz poetry, folk lyrics, John Brent, Len Chandler, and Hugh Romney, otherwise known as Wavy Gravy, at the Gaslight Greenwich Village circa 1960 Musitron Records. How many copies of that record do you have?
One.
Okay. I have never, ever seen that record. I mean, please tell me how that came together. This is where it's at, man. This is the burgeoning rock scene. This is the vapid time of jug band music prior to, whatever. This is 1960, and you are pressing a record, Beat Generation Jazz Poetry, which you just did with folk lyrics. That is pretty much the most badass thing I've ever heard. Take me through how you guys put that together.
It was John Mitchell, the owner of the Gaslight, wanting to make more money. I read my poetry at the Gaslight and became the poetry director along with John Brent. And then I suggested to John, hey, why don't we try a little folk music between poetry? Mr. Romney, I made all my money with poetry. I said, come on, John, let's just try it. And it was a smash. I remember when Bob Dylan came down into the Gaslight, he was wearing Woody Guthrie's underwear. I'm not making this up. He had a sign on his guitar that said, "This machine kills fascists." And he says to me, hey, man, can I go on? And it was a hootenanny. I just grabbed the mic. I said, here he is, a legend in his lifetime. What's your name, kid? We ended up sharing a room up over the Gaslight, and Hard Rain, Gonna Fall was written on that typewriter. Bruce Springsteen once said to me, you still got that typewriter? Sorry, Bruce, it was eaten by a Beacon storage fire, along with Lenny Bruce's couch.
I mean,
stuff comes, stuff goes. This is the way of stuff.
Did you bring Bill Cosby into the Gaslight?
No, Bill Cosby brought Bill Cosby into the Gaslight, and when I was touring, he took over my room up above the Gaslight. But Dylan came to me. I was at the at the Village Gate, opening for God. Anyhow, some great musician whose name escapes me at the moment. Coleman Hawkins.
Wow.
Opening for Coleman Hawkins.
Wow.
Doing stand-up. And Dylan says, you got to come save the Gaslight. So I came back, and he kicked Cosby out of the room to give it back to me because I was stand then. But no, we never became close at all.
No, I was going to say, because when
he thought any time I would offer him a drink, it was full of LSD. He was certain that everything that I touched turned into LSD.
So and
who else thought that was, what's his name, the blind guitar player, Jose Feliciano.
Oh, Feliciano, yeah. No, this is, I mean,
don't give me no sugar cubes, he used to say.
You have really taken me out of my normal mindset, which is normally what I like to do to the artist, but you've done it just fantastically by scrambling me everywhere. But you started, I just want to be clear about this. When you started this poetry, this jazz poetry in Boston, you were not even smoking pot, right? You were lecturing the students, is that right?
Right, until that summer.
Right, and then you put shaving cream on.
I was lecturing. They weren't students; they were musicians.
Sure, and they were popular. You were lecturing them. Then you started to,
yeah.
and then
yeah, I was.
But Wavy, can you talk about you, like, who really hipped you to LSD, and the first time that you really had, well, just take us through the first epic trip that you ever had.
Oh my God. Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. Oh my. Probably at the Committee, which was an amazing improvisational theater. Gary Goodrow, Del Close, one of the great artists of any generation. There's a book about him. He's tired of being the funniest man in the room. I adored Del. John Brent, a genius. And John and I became Goon King Brothers, Dimensional Cremo, where we would move product from Owsley through the great guitar player Perry Letterman out into the world. And John did the mail order, and I would do Grand Avenue and go to Margot St. James, who was running a Hookerville, and keep all of North Beach supplied. And on Mondays, we would take some.
So this is when you had relocated to Los Angeles?
No, I'm in San Francisco.
Okay, because the Committee was based...
The Committee was in San Francisco on Broadway.
The Committee
Topless satire.
Okay, so you were doing poetry with strippers?
No. I was doing improvisation in the greatest... There are two great improvisational theaters. Second City...
Absolutely.
In Chicago.
Yep.
And the Committee in San Francisco. And they're both interconnected.
I love
a lot of the same players played both rooms.
Right, and you're identifying cats like John Brent and I'm sorry, the cat Close, the funniest, the guy he's tired of being.
Hell, Close, my God, what a genius!
No, absolutely, like you. But I mean, this is and because I've talked to some cats that played at Second City, and again, they're younger than you, so it was that Alan Arkin, Belushi crew. That was a younger generation, but this was the original.
Alan Arkin was so much before John Belushi, maybe 15 years.
Right. So the Committee, though, I want you tell me. So the Committee was there, And you met Owsley showed up, or how did you connect with Owsley originally to become a distributor?
Through Perry Letterman.
Perry Letterman,
who was a great guitar player.
It was like, I mean, so you're there, and I mean, were you?
I'll tell you a story, a Perry Letterman story. We're driving across, excuse me, the Golden Gate Bridge, and in the trunk is, I think, all the DMT in North America. When we're pulled over, and we're slightly dosed. And the cop has, snakes coming out of his nostrils and stuff. And Perry's looking through his glove compartment for registration. I said, "What do you mean? Where'd you get the car?" "From this drummer named Bob." That's it? You're going to go tell the cop that? And he did, and the cop let us go. It was amazing.
Jesus. I mean, but you actually made it out there. Because when did Lenny Bruce first discover you? Did he discover you at the Gaslight?
I suspect he saw me first in the Gaslight, and I was married in the Gaslight by Reverend Gary Davis.
No way.
You know who that is?
Are you kidding? I've interviewed everybody from Yorma to Dave Bromberg. Those guys used to help him across the street. Bob Weir would take lessons from him in his basement in Queens. And, all he wanted was a little bit of fluff down there, He's smoking his cigars down there. I cannot believe he...
Len Chandler took me to meet Gary Davis about the wedding. And I remember he said that we needed to stand on wood. So we had to go out and get planks to stand on because the Gaslight floor was concrete. He was supposed to bring the Bible. He brought Peter Rabbit instead in Braille. So he improvised. Everybody was there. Dylan was there. Van Ronk was there. The whole Paxton, everybody. And his closer was Just a Closer Walk with Thee, which I requested.
All right, I'm going to read.
I was married to this French girl. I thought I wanted one.
Right.
She did a bikini like nobody on earth, and she had a French accent, and it was a terrible mistake. 3 years. We had a daughter. My current wife, I've been married to for about 50 years.
Yeah, she's a pretty heavy cat herself. She's a heavy cat herself.
The girl from the North Country. You betcha, Red Rider.
That's right. That is Bob Dylan. That's right. Good for you. All right. Here's your choice. World Pacific 1805. Hugh Romney, a.k.a. Wavy Gravy. Third Stream Humor. Take your pick out of any of these three, and please do it for the audience. Talking about Thelonious, Want to Go on a Trip, or Speaking Dope. You go.
What do you mean? Pick one.
Talking about Thelonious, spoken word.
I just did. I gave you a whole Thelonious story.
But
fun.
Yeah, but what's on the record? What's on the record?
Oh God. I think he didn't show up.
Yeah, right.
Time.
What about My Secret?
And so Betty Shapiro asked me to do 2 sets, and Monk didn't show up. And I knew if I went out again, people would start throwing ashtrays. So I went out on Sunset Boulevard looking for Monk and watching Miss Las Vegas. It was a giant woman who spun around and around and around. Now what happened was Monk was going over Laurel Canyon, and the hill threw him off. He was altered, I'm sure. Yeah. And he thought he was in San Francisco. And he told the cab driver to take him to the Jazz Workshop.
Oh, boy.
Well, this cab driver knew what the Jazz Workshop was and knew it was Monk and thought, holy shit, this is going to be the ride of my life. It's going to be, at least $1,000, $2,000. And I think he snapped around Encino. So he had to turn around and come back to the Renaissance. And thank God he showed up. because I was not going to go on stage again. No, you'd shoot me. You shoot me, not put me on the. I don't want to die from ashtrays.
Did you when was? Can you talk about? I mean, one of the cats that I've tried to. I consider you a leader. Another cat that I consider a leader is Ken Kesey. Can you tell me about your relationship with Kesey and how you guys first, like, did you meet him on the bus? How did you guys meet?
No, back in the murky waters of psychotropic.
I understand, but this is promotion.
I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
He came and got me. I was staying with Tim Harden in L.A. in Susan Brusman's house, and Ken showed up and threw me in a car and took me to Bab's Spread in Watsonville or something, and made me watch 20 hours of Mike Hagan's shoes. No, the bus trip cross country made me watch the whole thing. It was days. I had to put toothpicks in my eyelids to stay awake. It was an ordeal, but that was the beginning.
And then, go ahead.
Let's see. We did the Mure Beach acid test. That was I think the first acid test that I climbed onto. I moved a lot of chairs around and stacked them up way in the air, and walked down the beach and found a bunker. Back in World War II, they had these bunkers where they would shoot cannons out of. It had a big metal door, and I opened it up. It was really cool.
Right.
And I had an antique card in my pocket that said Walton Biggerstaff Memorial Dance Studio. And I stuck it to the door of the bunker, and I would go there on early April Fool's Days with friends and eat pudding. You're putting me up. Exactly. You know, for my 50th birthday, which was at the Berkeley Community Theater, it was a benefit for just about everything. I did a tune, Basic Human Needs, with my backup girls, the Wavettes. And my wife took the microphone and said, "We can't let you orchestrate your entire birthday." And they wheeled out this bathtub, the bottom of which is painted gold, and around the lip of the bathtub are 50 plumber's candles burning. And it is full of chocolate pudding. And I am expected to blow out 50 plumber's candles as everybody is singing "Happy Birthday to," and I bent to the task and was ready to blow when from out of the bowels of the pudding came my 13-year-old son Jordan with a frog mask and a snorkel. Blew my mind. I've never had my mind blown to that level. It took days to come back. Blew my mind. I'm told I went to a reception. I ate cake. Bill Graham did not eat any pudding. He said, "What if he pissed in it?"
Yeah, well, I mean, you're throwing curveball. You're telling me the 50th anniversary. Jerry
was on that show.
Yeah.
And John Kahn, his bass player, was late. So Jack Cassidy says, Yorma's backstage. Why don't you ask him to play? So I brought Yorma out, and Yorma opened the show.
Tell me about, do you still have communication with Ken Babs?
Yeah.
Can you talk about Mr. Babs? Because I need, listen, this is, I know I'm asking you to go into the murky depths, but what I'm doing is trying to promote this, because what happened, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that a lot of very well-meaning square people wound up getting dosed on sugar cubes, the purest form of LSD when it was legal, and it opened their minds, which is why you had this kind of insanity, this good insanity. Now,
not sugar cubes. Let me tell you the story. Stop. Here we go. it was the eve of Lincoln's birthday. Well, first of all, I'll tell you the beginning. My wife and I, Bonnie Jean then, Bonnie Beecher, we were wanting to celebrate the great Lord Richard Buckley. And I arranged to use this mountain belonging to Lewis Beach Marvin III, the heir to green stamps. He had this mountain in Topanga Canyon that looked like Sugarloaf. It was so breathtaking. And he said we could use the mountain to celebrate Lord Buckley. And I sent out these invitations with a map to Moonfire. That's what the place was called. With the Lord Buckley line, "The flowers, yes, the flowers, but the people are the true flowers, and it has been a pleasure to have momentarily strolled in your garden." So everybody that I knew in L.A. got these invitations to come to Moonfire, and the night before, it started raining and raining and raining, and people were calling, "What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" I said, "Well, let's sleep on it, see how it is in the morning." And I get up in the morning, and it's raining, and it's raining. And I go down in the kitchen, and there's 45 people in day-glow clothes cooking eggs. The pranksters had arrived to do their traveling road show. Can you pass the acid test?
I love it.
Oh, my God.
I love it.
Raining
I love it.
Till finally I said, call off the sunset. Let's do this acid test thing at the Unitarian Church in the Valley with Paul Sawyer as the minister there, and it's going to be cool. So that's what we did. We invited everybody to the acid test. That was the early one. And but it started to get close to sunset, and Babs says, Babs is taken over for Kesey, who was on the lam in Mexico. And he's in charge, which he's very good at.
Right.
And he said, "You really want to go to that Moonfire?" And he threw me the keys to a Valiant, and a bunch of us climbed in and drove out to Topanga in the rain, got out of the car, started walking up this muddy road, came to a big metal sign, "Police Dog Training Course, no trespassing." Believe me, not many people went beyond that sign.
I'm sure.
But we knew better. We went around and continued up. When we got to the top of the hill, the rain stopped, the clouds parted, and the most magnificent sunset in the history of my life, and I've seen plenty of them. And I was so ashamed that Lord Buckley did his thing, and we didn't even show up. So after that, through the years, till this day, if we're mentioned on a poster, a flyer, a billboard, electronic, whatever, we're there. Doesn't matter if it's an earthquake or a fire or a monsoon, whatever it is, we're always richer by showing up. And we get our just rewards for doing it.
Would you...
Go ahead. Okay, so there we are. The Unitarian Church in the Valley. My wife had made pineapple chili in honor of Lord Buckley, and it got burned. Some pranksters burned it and then flushed it down the toilet and clogged the Unitarian sewer system, so they had to send for plumbers. And, you know, the big one, of course, was on the eve of Lincoln's birthday in Watts, the Watts acid test. This is the most memorable one that Tom Wolfe wrote about and everything, although he didn't have the correct information. Because he did maintain that I was the one who put the acid in the Kool-Aid at Watts. And I still have mothers come and beat me with umbrellas because I think about 50 people committed themselves after that little episode. Here's the deal. It was the eve of LSD becoming illegal. There were 2 giant ash cans, brand new, galvanized, full of Kool-Aid. I said, everybody, gather around. Now, here it is. The Kool-Aid on the right is the electric Kool-Aid. That's my line that Tom Wolfe lifted. The Kool-Aid on the left is for the kids.
Right.
Let's review. On the right, electric Kool-Aid. On the left, for the kids. And I did this for about 10 minutes. But people would come off the dance floor after dancing for an hour or so to the Grateful Dead, and they were just looking for something wet. And wet was a couple hundred micrograms of glug. And the whole place started melting down. Then this girl started going nuts, and she's screaming, "Who cares? Who cares? Roy! LSD!" And I think it was Babs who took one of Owsley's best microphones and shoved it down her throat wherever she was, and over the PA into everybody's DNA. Who cares? Who cares? I staggered to a microphone. I said, "Some sister has unglued, and let's glue her together. If you feel like it, I'll meet you where she is. Let's find her." And I set out crawling around. It took me 20 minutes, half hour. She was in this little side room surrounded by about 15 people, and some of which I recognized. We joined hands. We turned into jewels in light. She turned into jewels in light and stopped screaming, and that's when I passed the acid test. When you get to the very bottom of the human soul, where the nit is slamming into the grit, and you reach down to help somebody who is worse than you are, that's when everybody gets high. And you don't even need LSD to do that.
You know, I love you. Wavy, how that was some of the best poetry you've ever riffed on. But I want to be clear. You please, for the record, correct what was inaccurate. He took your line. Wolf took your line. The electric Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
What else is inaccurate about about that event?
You know what else? He was pretty right on. He got his stuff from various reporters and acid heads. The most brilliant of which is a guy named Norman Hartwig. The notes that he got about me dosing the Kool-Aid at Watts was from a woman named Claire Brush, reporter for the LA Free Press, and she was in an altered state, and she just speculated. And Tom took it as gospel. I stayed at his house on Beekman Place. The woman that he lived with, her daughter was on the buses.
I'm very curious about this idea that.
So we got to park at Tom Wolfe's houses, wherever they were. In San Francisco, we parked at his place, and I got a call. We were broke and trying to get to. We were all going to smoke marijuana on the front steps of the Department of Agriculture, and we ran out of money and gas. We're sitting there in the bus when a call came in to Tom Wolfe's that they wanted me to do a commercial for those little cigarillos. And, Janice is smoking them, and all the musicians were doing it. What are they called? Little cigars. Anyhow, all I had to do was come out of a portisan while some hippie playboy walked by with a babe smoking one of those stupid cigars. I didn't even have to smoke one. And I got $10,000. So we were able to go to Washington and smoke pot on the front steps of the Department of Agriculture, thanks to cigars. And then there was a riot at the festival, Powder River, I think it was called, and so they couldn't use the commercial. So I didn't lose karmic points by smoking on TV.
Can I just ask you, for somebody who was born in 1978, were these acid tests, basically you guys saw the handwriting on the wall that it was becoming illegal, so you said we just need to have these carpet acid tests? Were there communal acid tests following LSD becoming illegal?
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk about how did it change, though, in the sense that it was now considered to be a street drug, and the cops were, I mean, how did it fundamentally change the vibe of the scene? I mean, for instance, when you had the hog farm, to me that's fascinating because the people started to outnumber the pigs.
We're in the hog farm now.
What is that?
We're still living on the hog farm.
I'm coming out to the hog farm as soon as possible. But, I mean, what I'm trying to say is, you know...
I'm still on the hog farm today.
Did LSD... I guess there's twofold question. The vibe of the acid tests before it was illegal, and then also how did the acid itself change once it became part of the economy and not just a pure form?
We're just a little more cautious, I guess. Kesey went to jail on a marijuana beef, and and Neil. I'd love to talk about Neil.
Yeah, please talk about Cassidy.
Because he was very much a part of the situation. Neil Cassidy, 10 things at once and nothing twice. It was my thrill to shotgun for Neil Cassidy as we were driving down the road, and he's carrying on 6 conversations, peeling a tangerine, rolling a joint, and somehow driving the bus. And you don't want to.
This is insane.
It was the talking part, and Neil and I got to. We'd get on 2 mics, and he'd say a word, and I'd say another, and we'd build stuff. And we did some funny shit, man. And one time we did a really funny thing, and Neil was off to the next thing. And I said, Neil, stop. I quit. Either you got to laugh when it's funny, or I don't want to play anymore. And I actually made him blush, which was a photo opportunity because he didn't do that very much. He'd throw a hammer in the air and catch it flawlessly. He was so fluid and amazing, and he taught me to pick up the garbage after an acid test, and God, it was like turning the garbage into the I Ching and learning to read it. And God, one time we found an glass eyeball. Oh, Neil.
Can you talk?
Okay,
yeah.
Here's a story. Stuart Brand of the Whole Earth Catalog put together this event at San Francisco State called Whatever It Is. And we had Kesey hidden in a secret room with a microphone. And Neil and I would get on the microphone and describe, as we're talking, what is going on in the big hall. And then Kesey could talk into it like he was really there. And the FBI is running around like crazy people trying to find Kesey. And they never did at that particular juncture. They caught him on a freeway maybe a couple weeks later.
With some marijuana?
And that was hilarious.
Well, I mean, can you talk about Cassie? Because when I interviewed John Barlow, the lyricist for the Dead,
John Perry Barlow, excuse me.
Sorry, John. Can you talk? Did you and John Perry Barlow? When did you cross paths with that cat?
Oh, he's one of my dear friends.
Can you talk
Barlow,
about?
I can't. I have no idea.
Well, I guess more. I mean, I did a great interview with him, and he was talking about just how amazing it was. You know, he wished he hung out more with Cassidy. But talk about.
Yeah.
Can you talk about why you love John Perry Barlow?
He's a genius. He's funny. We almost lost him last week or so.
Last week or last year?
Last week, couple weeks ago. And then next thing you know, he's out on this Dutch device, which is like a walker and a tricycle combined. And I got to get one. They come from Holland. And he's out in a yellow one that made the newspapers. So I called him up to find out the deal. And I'm talking to him. And I thought he was out and being sprightly, and he was actually talking to me from in the hospital. So I think he's back in, and I'm worried. He's something that we worry about now. Not like Jerry. We used to worry about. We expect to lose Jerry every every week.
Do you remember those times in the early 80s with Garcia, like when he was...
Oh, absolutely.
I mean...
we did babysitting at the Dead shows. All the Dead kids and their friends and all. And, we'd have like 80 kids at New Year's and bring them out for the balloon drop and try not to lose any and bring them back to the kids' room. We played bingo for valuable prizes. And I'll tell you something. If your prize is cool enough, and I shopped, man. I went to Ace Plus toy stores and scored amazing stuff. And I'd lay it out on the table, and kids would come in and start to salivate. And I'd do blackout bingo. You had to cover the whole card. And I could have 80 kids riveted. And I'm going, B5, I-22. And they're so on it. Oh, my God, it was beautiful. And we did it for free a whole bunch, and then the Dead insisted on paying us. And that's the money that we used to do a down payment on our 500-acre ranch 3 hours north of San Francisco, where I do Camp Winter Rainbow. The two things I do in the world are Seva, S-E-V-A, which is a Sanskrit word that means service to humankind. Do you know that 80% of the people in the world that are blind don't need to be and can get their sight back with a simple 10, 15-minute operation, and the bandages come off the next day and you can see? Seva, as over the years, we started in Nepal and then India, and now worldwide we've done or assisted in doing 3 million sight-saving operations. That's a lot of people that aren't bumping into shit. And people are always asking me, what's your greatest legacy? And they expect me to say Seva, which is certainly one of them. But the greatest are the kids that have come out of Camp Winter Rainbow over the first nearly half a century. And we run into them all over the world.
I wanted to ask you, the other thing is, aside from both of us being BU alumni, I have a master's as a teacher of the visually impaired. So I've taught kids all through high school, mainly kids with severe and profound disabilities. Some of them born blind at birth. But I really am fascinated with Seva. I know unknown Bill Gates was an early contributor, but you went with Ram Dass to Nepal, is that right? Can you talk about what?
First, Richard Alpert showed up at the committee. That's when I first met him.
Okay.
And he boasted about his aura, and I thought, who is this cat, Richard Alpert? And then as Ram Dass, he came into that event that I was talking about with Kesey in the secret room. And as he came through the door, his aura bent and then bang, sprung up. And I said, shit, he really does have a big aura. Because I was in a state that I could see them at that particular juncture of consciousness, which was kind of cool. Let's see.
But then, how did you? Then you connected.
Ram Dass.
Yes.
Ram Dass went to India to, seek future enlightenment beyond acid, and it was Bhagavan Das, this scoundrel of other Ektar player, who took him to see Nim Karoli Baba, the Maharaji, the little guy in the blanket.
Yes.
And the Hog Farm, were part of a Tom Donahue hallucination called Cruising for Burgers that turned into Medicine Ball Caravan, where Warner Brothers, if we participated, agreed to fix all our buses. We couldn't turn that down. And I got Larry Brilliant, this doctor friend of mine who edited Body Politic, this radical doctor, and his wife. They were going to cut sugarcane in Cuba. I said, no, come on, let's do this thing. It'll be cool. And we would drive off and stop and set up a stage and tie-dyed teepees and Warner Brothers would fly in, like Van Morrison and Joni Mitchell, and the best thing in the whole movie was B.B. King. I'll tell you a great story. We pulled into Yellow Springs, Ohio, and Thomas King Facade, who was the publisher of High Times magazine, was following us around and messing with us with a limo with a Viet Cong flag painted on it and a four-poster bed on the roof. Well, when he pulled into Yellow Springs, he had the turret to a B-29 Flying Fortress. Now, let's bounce back a bit. We were asked to do security after Altamont in San Luis Obispo, and instead of a motorcycle gang for security, I wanted to use a moat full of Jell-O. So, because I was head of security at Woodstock, retired, I sent General Foods a plea for Jell-O, and they mailed me about a ton of the stuff. And then the mothers and fathers of San Luis Obispo nixed the festival. That happened a lot, and we just threw it in the possum belly, which is where the luggage used to go on our 48 Greyhound. Now, once he pulled in with that turret to a B-29, it looked like a giant plastic dessert dish. I said, let's fill that son of a bitch with Jell-O. And we did. Cherry Jell-O. It was so beautiful. As the sun came up, it was quivering, and then the sun came up some more, and it started to melt under the rays of the sun, and it turned into cherry soup. But we did not panic. We scratched our head and collective brain and came up with dry ice. We bought up all the dry ice within 20 miles and threw it into the dessert dish, and the Jell-O not only re-Jello'd, but it became geothermal, and these bubbles would rise up from the bottom of the Jell-O and announce themselves, bloop, bloop. And I'm miking the bloops and getting the audience to go bloop, bloop. And these hippies made this sign. It's the greatest sign in the history of anti-war. World peace through smoking Jell-O. Oh, my God. Doesn't get much better than that, my friend.
Wavy, can we do another hour, maybe in a couple of weeks on the radio? I have so much more to get to, and I just, you blew my mind today. You just took me all over the place.
Well, my time is tight, my friend. What are you looking at? Say a date.
I'm saying like the 16th of April. It would be the anniversary of the experiment at Boston University.
Say 20 what?
No, April 16th. Or April 23rd.
Oh, let me mark in the 16th.
You want to do the 16th? Because this was absolutely inspiring. I could go for hours, but I'm on a break here.
Can you send me a CD of this?
Oh, I'm going to call you. I'll call you in a little while. I'll get your. I need your email again because I'll send you an audio file on the whole thing of this. So,
I don't know about that.
What's that?
You're getting too technology.
If you prefer a CD, then my plan is to go to the hog farm anyway and hang with you anyway. But I'll get you this. Give me your. I'll call you later. I'll get your home address and I'll burn you a copy of this. Okay?
Well, you would come up to the Kate Wolf show.
Absolutely.
That's the only way, and I got a little time then.
Well,
I'm busy.
No,
but I have some time during Kate Wolf.
When is that
going to be a great show?
When's that going to be?
It always is. I don't know. Sometime go to K Wolf.
Okay, I'll check it out. I want to say thank you for enlightening my audience and myself, Wavy. I'm going to be transcribing this, and I'll give you a call later, and I'll get your address and everything. Much love to you, brother. Happy 80th birthday, man.
Bye.
Bye-bye. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll be back with Dave Grusin in a little bit.